We're in for a good time. We have Ashley Hlebinsky who's going to be on SHOT Show TV with me. And Ashley, I've known you now for a number of years. You were the curator at the Cody Museum, and the last time I talked to you, because we didn't have SHOT Show last year, was 2 years ago, and you'd finished really a big renovation, done a tremendous job there, and you were moving to Phoenix, and then we didn't get together last year, so what's happened since then?
So, a lot. I've had people since I left the museum, been consulting full time. They're like, what do you do? And then I give this very, very long explanation, which I won't do today, about all the different clients that I have. But I'm consulting full time right now. A lot of museums, doing a lot of work for lawyers, and then I'm also currently working with a very prominent Second Amendment law scholar. His name's George Moxery, and we're building the University of Wyoming Law Center's, or Law School's Firearms Research Center.
So, what's the impetus behind a firearms research center at a law school?
Well, one of the things that I've always been so passionate about is the fact that there is a real lack of quality firearms scholarship within the academic community. It's usually political or intrinsically biased by a lot of people. And so when I was at Cody working with the now curator Danny, we worked really hard to get respect within the academic community for our type of research. And so there's one other firearms research center in the country. It's at Duke, it's brand new. And George has worked a little bit with them, but we wanted something that was larger than just law information. So he's the law scholar, and there'll also be what's called material culture study, which is kind of museum studies. And they're looking at doing programming on pretty much everything. I mean, the shooting sports, the history of air rifles, all of the different museum, artifact-based history, obviously a lot of Second Amendment scholarship. And so it's really cool because you can come and be a student and now research and have a firearms background, which you really could not do in this country before that. And then you also can have visiting scholars, hold workshops, and just finally get good information in the system of the people who write all the scholarship that then we use in court cases and for our own research and public education. So it's pretty cool.
One of the things that I've always wanted to ask you, and I haven't, and now I'm going to, and I hope I don't embarrass you, but when you started at Cody, you were pretty young.
Yeah.
How did you even get into this?
So I told, when we reopened the Cody Museum in 2019, part of my speech before we cut the ribbon was that I gave my 20s to the Cody Firearms Museum because I turned 30 a month before the museum reopened. And so yeah, I started with Cody when I was 21, but I was also in graduate school, and then I lived there full time for 7 years. And I got interested because I wanted to be a doctor.
A doctor?
Yeah. I wanted to be a doctor, and I was interested in the history of medicine. So I started studying kind of a very high level look at ballistics on the battlefield and how it evolved from the Revolution to the Civil War, and obviously beyond that. And I got an internship at a military museum in Pittsburgh, and I had to identify about 200 guns, what they were, what had been modified from the Civil War through around Vietnam. And I got hooked. I had never held a gun before in my life. I did not grow up around guns, and so I got hooked. I learned how to shoot. I got my instructor certification, and it's been a ride. Not some place I thought I'd end up, but I'm very, very grateful I did.
One of the interesting things about that subject is it was in Vietnam that first time you could be wounded and within a matter of minutes actually be being treated, so the life expectancy dramatically increased.
Yeah, well, and the thing that I find, I'm going to go back in history a little bit, but the thing I always found interesting was the Civil War, because that was the first time you saw a full-scale adoption of a conically shaped projectile. It was a Minier ball over in Europe, and that was modified at Harper's Ferry by James Burton. And that was, because it had a different shape to the projectile, you actually had a better chance of shattering the bone rather than the round musket ball. And so there were more amputations that happened because of that, because of the technology changing, the ammunition changing. And I love that too, because I feel like we never talk about ammunition history, but it's just as important.
It is. Well, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So now here's the big surprise thing. Reality show star?
Former reality show star. I think we talked about that years ago when I had my show on Discovery Channel for a brief moment, but I do a lot of television anyways. I'm on Outdoor Channel's Gun Stories. I've been doing that for 6 seasons, I think now. I do documentaries, one-offs, but they call me, when you're doing expert kind of conversations. They call you expert, not talent, in your contract. So I would say former, but I've also still appear on things from time to time. But I usually appear in a chair like this, and I'm saying very, very boring history things, and they cut to and from me and other scenes, and the star is Joe Mantegna, so he's more important than me.
Oh, I don't know about that. So what's coming down the line? What's next?
So in addition to the University of Wyoming Firearms Research Center, I've got a lot of museum clients. You know, museums kind of struggled during COVID, and so they're starting to come back. I've got a lot of clients, but the one I'm really excited about, and you're going to meet him tomorrow, is the LA Police Museum. So I had no idea this existed, and when they first spoke to me, I had to kind of keep my stuff together because they have some of the coolest things I've ever heard of. And it's all like, if you've seen a true crime documentary on basically any network or on Netflix, they have artifacts associated with that. So I'll let them talk about it, but it's really neat. It's the best, one of the best collections I've ever seen, outside of Cody, of course. And so they're just trying to, they've got some great people coming in now that we're trying to get you know, the interpretation to come up to the level of the collections, because it's really neat. So if you're in Pasadena, definitely check them out.
Ashley Hlebinsky, it is always a great pleasure to
fun.
interview you, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
For SHOT Show TV, I'm David Lombardo.